Hello everyone and welcome to this new CTO Talk. My name is Cornel Fatulescu. I'm going to be your host today and I'm very happy to do the third session this year, a new CTO Talk just for you. Before going any further, why are we doing this? So within time, because essentially everything we do at Globant, it will be ended up with a team offered for our customers. Therefore, it's very important to align and help our technology leaders to better engage with these teams and do a better job when transforming their organizations. Now, that being said, we've developed over time a new structure called CTO Fundamentals, which is still available on pentalog.com. You can search for it. And in that structure, we have developed an idealistic view about the CTO role and technology leadership in general. And the idea of the CTO talk was to stress that view, which is, again, an idealistic view. So in CTO talks, we invite real people doing the job, technology leaders, CIOs, CTOs. With this occasion, we have a chief architect. Very happy to do this session. VP of engineering managers. So we ask them the same set of questions, and that's half of the success of this CTO talk. And the other half for this success comes from you, dear audience. So please ask your questions, use the Q&A module here in the chat, and I will take those questions and use them to interview our guest. That being said, Douglas, please join the stage and tell us a few words about yourself and the company you work for.
Hi, I'm Doug Wilson. I'm the Chief Architect of Swiss Timing. Swiss Timing is the sports technology arm of the Swatch Group, providing timing and scoring services for major multi-sport events like the Olympic Games, the Commonwealth Games. We do everything from run the clock to determining who wins the race, the photo finish, the TV graphics that go on air, and all the data management services, the event websites and things like that, that go around engaging viewers with the sports. And we do this on behalf of the Swatch Group brands. So for the Olympic Games, you'll see brands like Omega, in other competitions, Longines, Tissot. If there's a logo on the television screen that is part of the Swatch Group, it's us who are providing this timing and scoring service.
Great to have you here. Now, what are your main responsibilities?
So as the chief architect, my job is to define and ensure adherence to a global architectural vision. So you can imagine at the Olympic Games, there's 46 different sporting disciplines, 46 very, very different systems needed to run those disciplines. But there needs to be a global architecture for everything to fit together. So it's my job to define that, drive it through the development teams, and ensure that things remain consistent and centrally managed as we grow and move forward.
And is there a CTO or a CIO in the company in the same time?
No, we do not have that role. The typical CTO and CIO responsibilities are fulfilled as a partnership between myself and the software development manager. So as chief architect, I maintain the technical vision and decision making, and the software department manager runs the engineering principles and the delivery.
Very interesting. So is any of these, I know you've named a few responsibilities, which are the most challenging for you?
Technical strategy and design, that comes pretty naturally to me. So aligning, doing system design, ensuring that things are built the correct way. Those as an architect come quite naturally and quite easily. Aligning the technical activities and driving the business strategy through development is a little bit more challenging and requires a lot more attention and focus. But it's probably also the most enjoyable. There's a lot of satisfaction in building capabilities and challenging thinking and setting direction now, and then seeing it pay off a year to 4 years down the line.
Interesting. And I usually ask a question for everyone being in CTO Talks, like about the translator role. In a sense, now your organization is quite different from what we've seen in CTO Talks before. How important is the responsibility of being a translator? Like there is a technology opportunity and you translate that to business and the other way around for you.
It's becoming more and more prevalent than ever before. It's probably about 30% of the job. You know, the technical people need to feel that they're involved in the business decisions and understand what the business is trying to do if they're going to feel motivated and challenged to take on these big tasks and deliver on them. But at the same time, there's a pushback on reality to the business. There's these great ideas, but within timelines, there only so many things are technically possible. So there needs to be that trust that the business has with the technology units and understanding what is possible. And to build that trust, there's a lot of translation that's involved. There's a lot of explaining the technical difficulties in achieving certain things. And this conversation that needs to go backwards and forwards and translating between the two until we can settle on a product that is achievable and still suits what business is trying to chase.
I mean, we're more curious now. So who are your stakeholders? With whom do you translate to?
We both on the product side, so there's a lot of product owners and of course our client services team, where they are talking directly to federations and to event organizing committees, taking in what the sporting organizing committees want and figuring out how to translate that into a product. So they lean heavily on us in terms of, from this idea, can we translate this into something that you can build? And then, like I said, the conversation going back in the opposite direction. There's well, you know, that was a good idea. What you had in mind isn't quite going to be possible, but we could still achieve the same outcome if we built something slightly different. There's a lot of those conversations backwards and forwards until we get to a place where we're ready to say, okay, we now know what we want. Let's start building.
To whom do you report?
I report directly to the CTO. I mean, the CEO.
CEO.
Yeah.
And about the CEO, how much time do you spend with the CEO?
As you would expect, not as much time as I would like. We're both incredibly busy people, but there is a strong partnership that's required between my position and the CEO. It's important that there's a shared vision for the company and that the technical landscape closely overlays and supports the company's roadmaps and objectives. So it tends to go in phases. When we are doing medium to long-term planning, there's a lot of interaction. But when we start, you know, when we're in short-term delivery mode, there's less interaction. It's more, we know what we're doing. Let's get on and do it.
If we'd have to somehow oversimplify, would that be, I don't know, 10% of your time in a quarter? Would that be less or more?
On a quarterly basis is probably too short of a window to measure. I'd say over the year, it's probably about 20% of my time. But like I say, it goes in cycles. There could be, you know, at once every 18 to 24 months because of the Olympic cycle. There will be 2 months of almost all day, every day. And then over the next, you know, 6 to 8 months, there would be, you know, a few hours every couple of weeks.
Interesting. And how big is your team?
You're talking about the technical division or the software architecture team?
Software architecture. Let's start with that.
The software architecture team is 4 plus me. I mean, as chief architect, I still act as an architect, guiding the team. And then as a development unit, there are more than 50 full-time engineers, and then a whole bunch more provided by outsourced partners.
And that is more like in the partnership you're talking about with the engineering, right? You have, that's not reporting to you, or is it?
Not anymore. It used to, but we separated that role a little while ago. Our engineering teams report through the software engineering manager, but their product backlogs are very often, it does change project by project, but very often the product backlogs and the product ownership comes from the architecture team.
And
We very much run in like a matrix style organization with product and architecture coming in horizontally and reporting line going up vertically.
and your architects, how do they work with the engineering team?
Architecture acts as a service. When engineering teams want to validate their designs or ensure that they are doing the right thing or are stuck with a hard technical decision, then the architects act as a service to them. They will come in and help. On big projects at the definition phase, when we are talking about defining a project, defining high-level architecture, then it's more the architects will start with a rough design and then iterate those designs with the engineering teams to ensure that design is both a co-function of architecture and the teams, and that we have as many good minds on the problem as possible to ensure that we get the right solutions.
And I'm going to ask just another two questions so that I get the whole picture of it. So in terms of architecture service, are you providing also support like in software architecture, or is more like solution architecture and enterprise architecture?
It's all of the above. So from the enterprise architecture perspective, we define and everybody else fits in. In terms of overall solution architecture, we define the high level, and we work with the teams to ensure that whatever they're building fits in. And then at the software architecture level, we act as consultants. The engineering team should be designing their own software, but if they're stuck and they need help, that's when we step in.
Let me take a question from the audience. Let's start with the simplest one. Do you find some difficulties to hire architects in internal, and how you motivate them to for staying in your company?
So architects are incredibly difficult to hire because the industry has many definitions of the responsibilities of an architect. And in a lot of cases, you will be provided the CV of somebody who's been a software architect for 10 years. And when you dig into it, he's been the senior developer and they needed a reason to pay him more. So the job title was changed to architect. Architects are mainly grown by being fortunate enough that in their career, they have been exposed to a wide variety of technologies and technical areas. So if you're lucky enough to have worked on a lot of different things and you have built up the kind of experience that would allow you to make very good technical decisions and design systems within the constraints that you have in your area. Like if you're an internet company, you've got to be somebody who knows all the gotchas of building for scale or high throughput. For us, it's distributed technologies and latencies. Those are the core areas. So it's very difficult to find architects from external, and instead we run a little program internally where we take promising senior developers and we move them into the software architecture team so we can ensure that they work on lots of different projects. So we send them out to work with software teams as junior architects with a senior to provide help, but on lots of different projects so that over a 2 to 5 year window, we can ensure that they grow into being ready to act as software architects in the organization.
2 to 5 years.
2 to 5 years, yes, at least.
At least. Okay. I hope that answers, Rashid, to your question. Another one, what is the deliverable of the architects?
Successful software delivery of the project that they are working on in a way that it fits seamlessly into our global architecture. So whatever project they're working on, it's got to fit into the high-level picture, and they technically need to lead it to ensure that that project is delivered on time, in budget. Yeah, that the software goes out the door and it works.
Good, good. I think
So
we've understood. We have a very good understanding, I think, about how things work on your side from this perspective. I'm gonna go back to my questions. Dear audience, please use the Q&A module to ask more questions. So many organizations struggle to find the right balance between the C-level decision making and the cycle time to implement those decisions. What can you share about us in this regards?
I think it's less about limiting the number of decisions and more about ensuring that the right decisions are taken at the right level. So your C-level shouldn't get swamped by taking on decision making that can be handled at lower levels of the organization. At every level, people should be able to make their own decisions. And in a lot of cases, a wrong decision is better than no decision at all. And that's where you get the impact on cycle time, because people wait for decisions to be made. And that slows down the ability to deliver all the way through. So it's about empowering people to make their own decisions and instilling in them a very good understanding of what decisions they should be able to make and which decisions they should check with the people above them on. But we very much encourage, just if you can, make a decision. Don't wait. Make a decision. Get moving. If we figure out the wrong decision was made, we'll generally pick it up before we've gone too far down the path and can correct it. But we want work to come out quickly. And so cycle time is important, and it is something that we track. And if things are blocked on decisions, those decisions need to be made as quickly as possible.
You said empowering people, right?
Yeah.
How does it work, the decision making at the highest level and empowering people? Can you say something about that?
People need to understand which decisions they can make for themselves. And in a lot of cases at the beginning, when people run to a leader to make the decision for them, the leader's best advice is to go, well, what should you do? And you'll find that the answer to that question is normally the right thing. And over time, you start getting to the stage where it's like, when those decisions are brought to you, your reply can start being, but you know what to do, just go and do it. You should only be bringing me decisions where you don't know what to do. And that's where the empowering comes in. It's, if you've got the right people, they know what the answer is. And normally when they come to you for a decision, they're just looking for validation and for the decision that they've already made. And it's encouraging them to just take those decisions. Because for the most part, they already know the answer. If it's decisions in terms of strategic direction, then they're not going to have the answer and they are going to have to double check. But those are the kind of decisions you want hitting C-level. The rest people should be able to make for themselves.
Do you think that what you said is something that fits, it's a cultural thing, that Swiss timing, or it's something widespread?
It's definitely something that continues to grow as a cultural thing inside of Swiss timing. In the company I worked at before, it was very much the same culture there. And it's something that when I look back, I hope to say that I've contributed towards growing as a culture in Swiss timing. Generally, what I find is that the smaller the organization, the more empowered people are, and the bigger the organization, the less empowered people are. But that's when you need good managers. So that this should be a cultural thing. I very much believe in it. Waiting for decisions is one of the biggest holdups towards good cycle time. And it's something I would encourage everybody to do. It's, figure out what the things are that you can make your own decisions on and make them.
Definitely. Do you have a particular advice for the audience in these regards? Like for those who feel like waiting for decisions?
If you've been waiting too long and you have a good relationship with your superiors, just tell them that you're going to start moving, that you can't wait anymore. And in the absence of them giving you a decision, you're going to make it for them. Then when you start implementing, make sure you position yourself in a way that you can change that decision with the least amount of impact as possible. Like I said to you, often making the wrong decision and starting to move is better than making no decision at all, because at least you're moving.
Yes. Very interesting, dear audience. I hope you hear this very well. Now, still about architects. Are all the architects in your team?
No, like I outlined, we are growing architects at the same time. So we have senior developers in our team as well, that we send out. It is primarily an architecture team, but we are growing the next generation of architects. So we do have senior developers.
I see someone is asking for favorite software architecture books, if you can, or resource. Can you share something?
I'm just trying to think some of them now. I can't remember the author's name, but Patterns of Enterprise Architecture is about a 15-year-old book. That is incredible. Then there's any of the work by Bob Martin. He has an enterprise, well, he has an architecture website that has a lot of repeatable patterns.
Great.
There is another one that I'm trying to think about. Oh yes, Martin Fowler. So Martin Fowler has a software architecture guide, which has a pattern for almost anything.
Yes, very good classics. I hope that answers, Adrian, to your question. Dragos, okay. Great. Okay, good. I'm going to proceed with related to Bob Martin and Martin Fowler. Let's talk a bit about technical debt, which is a theme, still is a theme. How do you define technical debt before everything else?
You mean, how do we define it in terms of it being in our
What's your
work system,
definition?
or
What's
what
your
do I
definition?
call technical debt? Technical debt is a collection of all the things that you wish you could fix in your systems. In some cases, it makes sense to add technical debt if you are chasing market delivery, and putting in hacks here and there and ordering in order to be the first one to market, or to meet a corporate deadline. Sometimes it's a good thing to take that on.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Can you develop?
Look, as a developer, you always want to do things the right way. I remember at my previous company when we were interviewing a software architect, and you get to the stage where you ask the candidate if they have any questions for you. One of the candidates put to us as a group of architects, how does the business manage technical debt? Not us as technical people, but as the business. And the answer given from my colleague was, the most important thing is that the business has grown a good appreciation for technical debt on both sides, the technical and the non-technical people. So the non-technical people have grown to a stage where they realize that technical debt is just that. It's debt, and too much debt will kill you. And debt always needs to be managed. And if you take on debt, it should be for very good reasons. And that the technical parts of the business were also in a good place because they've realized that not all software can be pure. And sometimes for business reasons, technical debt is taking it on is a very important thing to do because it allows you and the business to achieve its objectives. So that's the most important thing for me about technical debt is that there's a good appreciation on both sides. And then like all other debt, you need to measure it, you need to report on it, and you need to manage it. Like just like your personal finances. If you have too much debt, you're in trouble and you need to pay it back.
Sounds very interesting. And you gave me also some questions I need to think of. Can software be pure? You've said that. I think this is the first time I hear it.
I've never seen or come across a software system whose primary engineer did not have a big list of things that he thought could be done better. No system is perfect. As you build something, you learn more about it. And as you learn and understand it, there are different ways that you would want to do things.
Dear audience, I hope you took note of that. I have a question from Viorela. 3 questions. What motivates you in all you do? I'll take them one by one. So, what motivates you?
In my current role, I'm motivated by 2 separate things. Firstly, I love building systems. I love solving problems through technology. So to be able to wake up every morning and to take part in that process is incredibly motivating. And then inside of Swiss Timing itself, working with sports, everything that we do exists to generate and enhance the emotion that exists within sports. Seeing an athlete's reaction when you put up the logo on the scoreboard that tells them that they've just broken a world record, and the reaction to that, or the stories behind everything an athlete took to get to that point, and then being part of the presentation of them achieving it, or the story behind them not achieving it, and the heartbreak and the emotion that goes along with that. That's a large part of why I'm working where I'm working and why I do what I do. It's that emotion that exists around sport and being able to build systems that enhance that.
I will go with the second question from the same person, Viorela. What is the most engaging task, activity that you do? So it's related to the motivation. Maybe I could have taken them all together.
In terms of engaging, workshopping and facilitating collective design. Architecture shouldn't exist with a group of people that sits high up, in an office at the top of the organization and send designs down for people to build. It's a collaborative activity. And the workshops that we hold where we get all the technical people together and working through it as a group to come up with a common design, I really, really enjoy that.
Collective design. Yeah, interesting. Do you use a particular method for that, or it's in-house or your own way?
We have our own very defined process for developing an architecture for a system. So we have a set of templates that we work through in a very methodical way. How far we go before we start building varies from project to project. We like to do only enough architecture to get us started and then to continue to refine as we work forward. But we do have a well-defined process and set of documents that, like explain what we are wanting to build in very, very well-defined perspectives.
Interesting. And I'm going to the third question from the same question. What is your opinion regarding failure?
Failure is an interesting word. Failure in terms of we tried, we failed, we gave up. That's something I don't really like, and we try to avoid. If you're in that situation where you abandon a project, and you've abandoned it too late, so you've been doing this for a long time and then you gave up, those are situations we hope to never be in. But there is also the fail forward, fail fast mentality, where lots of small incremental failures that allow you to learn more about what you are doing, to understand the problem more completely, and to find a new way to solve it. That should be encouraged. So lots of micro failures, but at each failure taking a step forward. For me, that's the most perfect way to build software.
And for you, your answer now, is it more like your answer, or is it again something cultural at Swiss timing?
It's a little bit of both. When we start our projects, we try to prioritize the most difficult thing first. We identify the areas that if we cannot solve these problems, then we should not move forward. Then we try to bring that bring that right to the beginning of the project, so that if we are going to learn those lessons, we learn them quickly. And if we feel that we cannot solve this problem, then we can exit the project having spent the least amount of money on it. So we always try to solve the difficult things first. But it is also a personal mantra of mine. It is the way I like to move forward. You don't go and design something perfectly and get it right the first time. I've never seen that happen. It's better to start with a good idea, build small prototypes, and then keep iterating forward, with those small prototypes solving the most difficult parts of the problem.
I think sounds good. Viorella, I hope you've got your answers. Thanks for the questions. I'm going to a new question from Victoria. Can you discuss any partnerships or collaborations that Swiss Timing has pursued to accelerate its digital transformation journey? If you can share something about that, yes.
I cannot share anything about the partnerships. I can tell you that on our digital transformation journey over the past 2 years, well, more than that, 3 years, we have very much accelerated our move to decommission on-premise infrastructure and move all of our workloads as much as possible to the cloud. And then at the same time, there's also a big push for sustainability reasons, to reduce our on-venue footprint. So you can imagine we have a whole lot of equipment that we need to run at a stadium, and that equipment moves from event to event around the world as you know, each multi-sport event. And there's a concerted effort to reduce the amount of equipment that we need to move. So that's been our biggest driver for digital transformation, is to challenge ourselves on the way we build our software and how we run it and the equipment we need to run it on, and how can we move things around to have a smaller footprint.
So you've migrated in this, you said it between the lines that we've migrated to the cloud, public cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid.
Different in every scenario. And of course, you know, when you're doing sporting events and you're having to run a clock, not everything can run in the cloud. There always has to be some form of on-venue infrastructure. But we are in a hybrid phase where we are looking to move as many workloads as we can.
Thanks. Good. I hope, Victoria, that you had your answer. If not, continue. Okay. And I see also lots of questions in the chat. An anonymous, someone who doesn't want us to know who she is. What happens after a big event like the Olympics? how do you gather feedback? How do you decide upon actions to take at your level, and how do you prioritize them? Thank you.
So during the event, we obviously run support operations, and we keep a list of everything that happens during the event from a technical point of view. Anything that goes down, somebody needs to be sent out to fix it or address it. All of this is logged. All of that information then comes back, and after these big multi-sports events, we have a phase where we go back and start grouping all of these items into themes, and then looking at, you know, which are the big themes that came out, where are the things where we could, you know, fix one thing and impact a whole large number of items. There's also a large feedback session that happens with all of our partners, the organizing committees, the broadcast services, where, you know, we get feedback from them as to what they would like more from us and how we could improve our service to them. So we go through this phase, we collate all of that, and where we feel applicable, those become work items that then get driven into architecture or into the development teams to address.
And some of these feedbacks go even to the executive officer, or they stop at your level?
No, this goes all the way up to the CEO. At the end of this process, there's a report. He wants to know everything that happened. You know, what we are drive accountability, what are we going to be doing to address these items? So it's something we do at a senior management level. The work is often collated by the different department heads and the different team managers, but once we have the reports and we can start actioning it, then it goes all the way up to the C level.
I have a question from the audience from Adrian. I don't see the full name. I don't know because it's in the chat somehow. Adrian, yes. And he's asking something about differences between the scope for a CTO and the architect.
Generally, in a different company, the CTO would take on the responsibility for the entire stack. So it would be all the hardware, all the infrastructure, the data centers, the cloud infrastructure, and the software architecture, and the management of all the different people.
Mm-hmm.
We've very much separated those roles. So the chief architect is solely responsible for the technology and the ensuring that we have a centralized architecture that the rest of the business can plug into. The line manager responsibilities, the hiring, all of that falls under the department manager. The running of the data centers and the IT and things like that is the IT manager, but with strong partnerships between all of us. I don't make big architectural decisions without involving IT or the software developers, and vice versa. They don't make any big changes in terms of cloud strategies without involving us.
Because there was the question with the CTO, can you say something about the security officer or relationship with the security officer, and how do you do that?
Again, we have a security officer that is responsible for, somebody's got to be accountable at the end of the day that everything is secure. That is a constant conversation between us as architects and with the security officer. We are a big risk for security vulnerabilities. State-sponsored attacks are frequent. If a country loses its status at the Olympic Games and cannot compete under its country's flag, there is a lot of motivation for disruption. The audience is also incredibly large. So when you think that the 100-meter finals is watched by over 1 billion people live, We are a very appetizing target for bad actors. So security is something we take incredibly seriously, starting from the way we design our networks and going all the way up into how we deploy and operate our software. And there's a constant conversation between us and the chief security officer to ensure that.
I think this is not just for I remember a friend from the French media company that works a lot with the state, and he told me like it seems like everyone wants us to have security like in banks or big finance companies, but it's very hard for us. But we get at least the same kind of attack surface, or in terms of victims, we are a target. That lends to my next question. There are companies which are smaller, much smaller than you. Let's talk about a startup. A startup, they launch their product, their digital services, whatever. There are 5 people. If they are 5, they don't have a security officer. What advice do you have for them?
To start out with, you basically just need to have a good understanding of what your security risk is, because that's what you're doing all the time, is you're managing your risk. You know, if you were to be attacked, what would be the consequences for your business? In a lot of cases, things like a data breach with GDPR repercussions, the fines could be enough to close you down. So my advice would be to, at a minimum, maintain a data flow diagram, understand how your data moves, how you store it, and what are the minimal things you can do to protect it. In a lot of cases, it's becoming easier and easier to at least put in basic security levels. Obviously, you still need it, especially when you're a startup. It's all about getting to market. So you've got to be able to manage your risk. You've got to be able to weigh up how long is it going to take to put full-blown security in with what would happen if we were exploited. And you've got to understand how appetizing you are as a target for bad actors.
I think that
you do as much as you can within the resource constraints that you have.
As much as we can in your resource constraints, and always thinking about the risk. I hope the audience gets some use from this question. I think it also comes from some sort of disproportionate decision making in some companies. The IT or the technology obeys more and doesn't really have a voice of partnership, as you mentioned earlier, like real partnership with the executives. Other questions, but I'm getting back a bit because I'm getting too further from things that you've already said. You said something about environment. Can you share a bit more about what's your role in that?
By environment, you mean working environment and culture?
Yeah.
I form part of the leadership group, and inside that leadership group, shaping and influencing our culture is something we take very seriously and something we talk about a lot. We spend a lot of time discussing the values and the ideals that we would like everybody in the organization to display. And we try to, at a minimum, ensure that we live those values so that we act as good examples for everybody, and that through our words and our decisions that we demonstrate those at the same time. The rules we set up and the way we do things in our company are very important to us. And setting mantras where you figure out a sentence that completely encompasses the spirit that you wish people would apply to certain things. Figuring out that sentence and repeating it as many times as you can. Those are the kind of things we do as much as possible to try to guide and shape a culture.
Did I understand correctly? You've asked your colleagues what are the values that we want to see in the company? Did I understand?
About 2.5 years ago, as a leadership group inside the software organization, we worked together for a number of months to start having conversations with people and start talking about the kind of department we would like to be and the way we would like to interact with each other and communicate with each other and the values we would like to display. We went through a process of defining those, writing them down, and then talking about them.
And who was leading this?
This was led by the department manager at the time. So it was all the heads of departments, all the team leads, including myself from the architecture group.
Okay, crystal clear. I will get back to the questions. Do you have redundant systems? And if both, I think I've lost your camera, Doug.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
it is, sorry.
Do you have redundant system? And if both display different timing, which one is considered the right?
We have redundant systems. We do not do redundancy in terms of main and backup anymore. All of our systems are highly available, so we have multiple instances all running the timing at the same time. Of course, there is one clock. There has to be one clock. With a backup, that's probably the only place left where we would have failover. But in general, there is always one signal, and that one signal is the one that is right. At every point in the cycle, there is immense amounts of logging. So we ensure that if we lost every piece of equipment that we have, there would still be some way for us to determine who won the race. It is probably the most important thing that we do.
I hope, Jan, nice. Good. Another question, how do you balance the need for innovation with the requirements for stability and reliability in Swiss Timing's technical infrastructure?
We have a very long cycle in terms of bringing new innovative products to market. So from the time we have our first prototype, it is normally 12 to 18 months before we would use it as a live system. Generally, what we would do is we will take systems to events and run them in shadow. So they will run in the background, not participating as in any form of the competition. And then we compare the new product to the old product, and the results must be the same. Then as we gain maturity in that product, so, go there, find the problems, fix them, take it to another test event, run in shadow. When we get to the stage where we are confident enough that things are working exactly as we expect them to work, then we switch them around and we let the new technology act as the primary, and we run the old systems in shadow as a backup. Based on the previous question, we always have to be able to give the right result. And once this has worked over a number of competitions, then we can decommission the old technology. So we can't rush anything in. The risk for us is too great. We have to get the result right every time. And we'll keep things in shadow until whatever we're doing that's new provides that level of confidence.
it would be interesting to share something about quality assurance or testing in what you're doing. Huh? It's not in my usual list of questions, but it lands perfectly there. Can you say something about that?
We have you could call it an external testing department, but we don't like to refer to them like that. They are our certification house. Like I keep saying to all of our developers, they are not there to find your bugs. They are there to validate that the claims that you make about the quality of your software is true. So we have test cycles that happen inside our teams on virtualized environments. But then we do hand it over to an external team that would go and set things up on real hardware as if it was the real sport with all the correct sensors plugged in. And do that testing for us as well. Oh, did I lose you for a second? Your screen was freezing.
I, hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. You were frozen for a little while.
Okay, I can hear you. I heard you very well, so I didn't
Okay,
ask
good.
anything. Okay, and I really like the certification house. This is how many are there? Like people?
How many people? Well, they are split across 2 locations, and I would say that there's probably about 30 of them.
30. Okay.
But I'm not sure. I mean, please don't hold me on those numbers. I'm not sure that's run by a colleague of mine. That's just an estimation.
And I suppose it's very black box kind of testing.
We would like it to be that way, yes. Like they must run it as if they are in the field running it. White box testing that gets done inside the development teams.
Good, good, insightful. Okay, let's go to the next question. We have Adrian back again talking about startups. Thanks, Adrian. It's very interesting, I think, still. Would you advise to use cloud solutions or they are too expensive for startups?
It all depends on how you do things. So inside the cloud, infrastructure as a service, running virtual machines in the cloud will always be more expensive than running it on premise. Or clouds which just wouldn't make any money. If you are containerizing or using software as a service or platform as a service offerings, then generally it can be a lot cheaper. You've also got to remember that when you do things on premise, somebody has to run the equipment. So you need to hire people and pay salaries to run that equipment. So there is this part in the graph where it starts becoming cheaper to run in the cloud. Then again, it also depends on your user base and your load patterns. If you know what your user base is and you know what your max load is and your usage patterns are fairly predictable, then it would make sense to run things on premise. If you have the kind of software where your number of users could increase 10x, 100x at any moment, and you would need to rapidly scale, then the cloud starts becoming more attractive because you only pay for what you use, but you have that capacity available to you when you need it. So it all depends. Like for us, we are lucky our load patterns are fairly predictable. So we can choose whether we run things on premise or in the cloud quite easily because we know exactly the time of the event. We know how many users, being us for the most part. We are the ones that are going to be using our systems. And so for a lot of that, we do things on our own infrastructure. And then for things like the event websites, the management systems, the things where, nobody's going to use it, You're going to get 50, 100 users a day for 4 weeks. And then on 2 days, you're going to have 100,000 users. That's where we use the cloud.
Thanks. Adrian, thank you for, there's a side question about it. Very fast. Do you have a preference between Amazon, Google Cloud, or a public cloud?
All of them do different things better than the other one. The core decision is, are you the kind of company that needs to use the best of breed for each component? In which case you'd go for a hybrid, use different parts with different people. Or does it make more sense for you to just use one vendor where everything's the same? I don't really have a preference. They're all very good at different things.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. We still have 5 minutes. I will need like 1 minute for you to share something with the audience, unique. If there would be only one thing that you want to say, that would be the last minute. And let's say 3 questions. So many questions. So 3 questions. Let's try to do, I don't know, 40 seconds if each question. I'll go with the new questions coming. What is your regards to AI assistance in the development process? 30 seconds.
I've started using them more and more. It saves me an immense amount of time, especially the co-pilots. I find that for a lot of the case, I just press tab and most of the code that I'm wanting to write next is there. I would also say beware, because the AI co-pilots get it wrong a lot of the time. My developers are reporting back, and I'm finding this personally, that my time is shifting more towards the intent and the architecture and making sure that I know what I'd like to put together, and fixing what the AI did wrong, than I do actually writing boilerplate code myself anymore. So as technology people, the things are shifting. Architecture and intent is becoming more and more important, because the AI can write the majority of the code for you, and it can already.
Thank you. Jan, I hope you enjoyed the answer. How do you stay informed about industry trends? From David.
Read. I've spent a lot of time into setting up my news feeds to curate the things that I'm interested in a way that's very easy for me. So I have this application called Flipboard, and I spend a lot of time making sure that it gets its sources from the places I trust. And I spend at least 30 minutes a day reading.
Okay, one last question. What happens to the time and scoring once gathered? Are you responsible to make them available to the general public, or is it managed by partner?
Both. So in a lot of cases, we build and run the web endpoints that the general public uses to get that information. We also integrate with numerous different data feeds to push the official results out, both to the organizing committees and to media houses. So it's a combination of both.
Now we've made it almost. We are at the last moment. So please share your thoughts. If there would be one thing you want to share with the audience, an advice, whatever you think it may motivate or help them, please share it.
For me, the most important thing is to love what you do and to take ownership of what you're doing. And I would encourage everybody to find the things that you love doing and try to do that as much as you can. And when you do it, own it. Take full responsibility for it. Make your own decisions. Drive your own path. If you've got the first part right, the second part will normally click into place, and you'll be supported by the people around you.
Doug, thank you. What a collection of a strong statement altogether. That. Thank you, Doug. And hope we will see again in CTO talks, maybe see how it evolved over time or in other webinars. Dear audience, thanks for your questions. I hope you enjoyed Doug's answers, and I think you can connect however that happens. I think usually through LinkedIn for more questions to Doug. See you with the next CTO talk, Doug. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone.
This has been a great experience. Thank you for having me.
With pleasure.